Hi, we clicked on to today's tropical tidbit for Thursday. Over here in the Atlantic, still fairly quiet overall. Not a whole lot going on in terms of thunderstorm activity. The main area of heat energy is bundling over here south of Central America and the Eastern Pacific, where you can see a broad area of scattered thunderstorms and cloud cover. There is a broad area of cyclonic circulation over here, and this is something that the models have been hinting may try to become Tropical Storm Beatrice as the heat consolidates and moves off to the west-northwest over here over the next few days, perhaps affecting this area of Mexico at some point during the next week. So they will be watching for that over there. And this is indicating the MJO is starting to affect this area of the world, bringing upward motion over here to the Eastern Pacific. Eventually, during the next 2 weeks, I would expect this upward motion to start spreading over this entire area right over here, bringing more thunderstorm activity to the Caribbean and the southern Gulf of Mexico as well. And we're going to continue to watch this situation as we start to get heat building in this area a little bit more of the monsoon trough trying to invade a little bit farther north. As soon as this area of heat gets pulled out, it'll reform perhaps a little bit farther north over here and bring us something that we may have to watch before the month is over. We have a tropical wave over here in the central Caribbean, which is a little bit hard to make out, but if you look at the broad curvature in the low-level clouds, you'll be able to see it. Some trailing convection behind the axis, not too active right now. It is going to be coming west-northwest, and you can see the outline of this ridge right here. There's a small anticyclonic curvature of the upper cirrus clouds in here, and this ridge will be ballooning northward just a little bit over the next 3 days, and as this balloons a little bit farther north, winds will become a little bit more favorable aloft as this moves towards the Yucatan Peninsula, and with an upper trough diving down into the eastern Gulf of Mexico, this area may be fairly well ventilated by the time the wave gets in there. I'm not expecting anything significant from this wave, but I am watching for it to look rather nice, because if it looks rather nice, that means as it moves into Central America, which I think it's just going to do is move a little bit westward slowly, but not north. If it moves westward across the Yucatan Peninsula and it looks nice at that time, it means it will be gaining heat and it will be able to build the heat energy in this area, which is the area we're going to be watching later, because this tropical wave back here is coming west-northwest and it's going to feed its energy into this situation in 8 days or so. So we will be watching for these tropical waves to pile in, and the nicer they look, the more heat energy they're going to contribute, and the more we'll have to watch this area for possible development during the last week of June. If we look at the latest total precipitable water imagery, you can see our tropical wave here moving into the central Caribbean. By the end of the loop, here it is in the central Caribbean. Broad cyclonic curvature is evident throughout the entire loop in the eastern Pacific, and you can see on the eastern edge of this screen our second tropical wave coming across, and we will be watching these things as they come west-northwest, because in June they can do mischief in this area of the world, not so much farther east, but once they get into the western Caribbean and the southern Gulf of Mexico, tropical waves can cause trouble, and they are often the catalysts that help bring the monsoon trough north in the first place and focus convergence at the surface and heat energy into storms that can sometimes form out of situations like this. Here we are at the GFS, day 8 now. Notice the timeline is starting to shift forward, and that's always a good sign when you're looking for development, is where the models are showing development and it's moving forward in the timeline, not staying at day 15, run after run, day after day. The GFS is still fairly alone in showing development with this, but you can see the upper level pattern, upper level ridge showing up over the southern Gulf of Mexico. With this kind of an outflow channel and this kind of an upper configuration, we'd expect a storm right about here, or a low pressure area at least right about here. And if we look down at the surface, that is indeed what we find, low pressure and precipitation showing up in the western Gulf of Mexico, fairly close to the Mexican monsoonal circulation here with the low pressure area, which means that this is a little bit far west. The GFS is not really that bullish on it because pressures are generally fairly low in this region to begin with, but it does show the precipitation, so there is energy here. You can see that if Beatrice developed, it's way off over here by now, with only scattered showers left behind. The monsoon trough is generally farther north in here, and you can see this going on. And if we look up at 500 millibars, notice where the ridge is in here, a little bit farther east, and this broad weakness in here could allow this moisture to escape northward and affect Texas, perhaps bringing relief to their drought if we have a system there. This kind of a situation may give them some rain, but only if this system actually exists in here, and that's not a guarantee, because the GFS again is the only model that is actually trying to develop something, and has been the only one for quite a while. The NOAA apps is trying to see the same kind of deal. This is a between days 7 and 8 over here, very broad monsoonal low over Central America, a little bit of a vortex over here in the Bay of Campeche, but not showing a whole lot, and this is the only run during the last day that has showed any kind of activity in this area. So we'll continue to watch as we get closer to the timeline. We'll see if the NOAA gap starts to pick up on any of this. The European is still quiet. The Canadian is still quiet. The Canadian ensembles had broad low pressure in the southern Gulf of Mexico yesterday, since backed off on the 0Z model mean. So it's a little shaky on the model support right now, but it is still a little ways out, and it's a very pattern-induced kind of situation that we're just watching for, because the factors are there that could allow development. That's never a guarantee that it will happen, but it could be possible. Another factor in the favor of this is the MJO. This is the UK Met, which is fairly bullish on bringing the MJO out here into phase 1 during the next 7 to 14 days, and this is the octant, not the quadrant, that brings upward motion to the western Atlantic. And it is interesting, I forgot to put this map up today. I may show you it tomorrow. But all of the June southern Gulf of Mexico and western Caribbean developments that occurred, nearly all of them were around here, around this line between phases 1 and 2, mostly in phase 1 over here. And this is the region where most June developments in this area of the world occur, with only a couple of outliers. It's very consistent. It's very interesting to see that all of the developments in this area of the world in June happened during that phase of the MJO, and we are going towards that based on the models right now. So the pattern is there. We're going to have 2 tropical waves that are going to be feeding their heat into this area, into the monsoonal circulation that will be drifting north. It's a situation that I've been saying for a while. We need to watch for possible mischief. That's not a guarantee that it will happen. We'll have to get closer in on the situation to see if we get something organized trying to develop, and if we get some more model support. Until then, we're just watching and waiting, hoping for some drought-busting rains up here in the North Gulf Coast, and we'll continue to watch this situation as it evolves. That's it for today. Thanks for watching.